Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be looking at number of islands. And in this problem you have ones and zeros, and ones represent land. And ones are connected either horizontally or vertically. So for example, we start at this one, it's connected to all of these and all of these. So all of this is one island, so we want to return one. Here, this island's connected to all of these. Here's another one, so we want to return 3. So essentially the idea of it is really easy, right? We can just visit cells. So let's say we visit a cell like this cell. And then we can either DFS or BFS to all neighboring cells. And every time we visit a new cell that's a new one, we mark it 1. So essentially, just to go through this example, like we'd visit this first cell, we'd say like, oh look, we have a new island, so we'll say 1. Then we DFS or BFS to all other cells that are 1s, so we'd cover all of these. And then we'd mark them visited, or you can change them to 0 in place. But basically, you're going to visit all of these from this original cell, and these will all be visited. Then you keep going through the rest of the cells, and if you hit any more ones that you haven't visited, that's a new island. So whenever you visit 1, 1, you visit everything next to it, you mark it all visited, and for every new one you visit, then you get a new island. So this will be 1, and let's go through this example now. So essentially we get to this cell, this is our new island, so 1. We visit everything next to it, which is this. Then whenever we visit like all these ones, these have already been visited, so we don't need to count them twice. Then we're going to go through all this, then we get to this one, this is another island, so we'll mark it. We'll visit everything next to that, it's just this. And then we get to this island, and we'll mark it again, and we'll visit everything next to that, which is this. So we have 3 islands total. So essentially you can do this in a depth first search or breadth first search. Pretty easy. I'll do a depth first search this time. Usually I do the breadth first search. But yeah, I'll go with depth first search this time. It doesn't really matter for this. And for a breadth first search, you don't even need a queue. You can just use a basic array, because the order you visit all your islands doesn't matter. You're not trying to do like any shortest path or anything. So you can literally do whatever you want. So we'll just do a simple DFS, I think. Yeah. So we'll have int. And I'm going to make these class variables just to have them accessible in the DFS to make it easier. So I'll have rows, columns, visited, yeah. And I'm going to make it a Boolean array instead of a map, which will be easier because then it's going to be less verbose. So it's going to be the same dimensions as the grid. And then what else do we need? We need a direction, so we can make that here. So yeah, directions. And that'll be here. So we'll make it 1, 0 and 0, 1, -1, 0. And 0, -1. So we have our directions, then we'll initialize everything else in here. So we'll say rows equals grid length, columns equals grid 0 length, visited equals new Boolean array with the same dimensions as our grid. And we'll have an int islands. Then essentially we just need to walk through our islands, and every time we hit an island, we can call DFS on it, and it has to be an island that we haven't visited yet. Then we'll call DFS on it, and then we'll make the DFS below that. So we'll say for int row equals 0, this in rows, and for the column. So if grid row column, so it needs to be an island, and it needs to not be visited. So not visited row column. Then we'll increment our islands and call DFS. And now we don't have to pass down all these things because they're class variables. So all we have to do is pass down the row, the column, and the grid. We could have initialized the grid, but whatever, we'll just pass down the grid. Okay. Then we just return the result, or the islands here. All right, and now we are going to make the DFS down here. So it's going to be private boolean, or not boolean, void DFS. It's going to take a row, a column, and the grid. Okay, and so pretty much what we need to do is first we can check if the cell is either out of bounds or visited or all that stuff, and we don't need to do anything. So that's the first thing we'll say. So we'll say like if row is less than 0, or row equals rows, or column is less than 0, or column equals columns, or grid row column. So this is water, we don't care either. Or it's visited already. So visited. We don't care about any of those cells, so we can just return. Otherwise, we're going to mark the cells visited. And we are going to DFS in all 4 directions. So, not initialized. Okay. So we're going to DFS in all 4 directions. So for int array dir in directions, DFS row plus dir 0, column plus dir 1, and pass down the grid. All right. I think that should be fine. And then I think this just takes a long time to update. We'll see. Find out. Okay, looks like it's good. So yeah, pretty easy. You can DFS. You can make these variables in here, class variables or whatever you want, up to you, and pass them in here. And yeah, so there's not too much to it. You could DFS, BFS, literally whatever. This is like probably the easiest matrix traversal problem you're gonna get. So I'm assuming they'll just do harder stuff later on. I guess the one yesterday was also pretty easy, but yeah. So this is time n by m, because essentially we visit every cell once, or like twice or something, because we're not checking for we're not validating until we recurse, but we won't. It'll basically be roughly n by m space. So it'll be n by m because we have this visited set or array. You can make it O of 1 if you just manipulate the input. So if you what you could do there is, like, let's say you get to here, this is an island. Every time you visit, instead of marking it visited, you can just change it to a 0. So you'll just change this to a 0. Then everything you visit, you'll change into zeros. So that's another way to do it, and that'll work as well. But typically you don't want to manipulate input. So, and yeah, so pretty much all there. Yeah, this is n squared, right? And then DFS from a cell is, yeah, you're not visiting multiple cells more than once. So yeah, or not n squared, n by m. So pretty much all there is to it. Yeah, if you have any questions, as always, write in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.